Hi everyone and welcome to the second episode of the Definitive Guide to CAT. Hope all of you watched the first episode and you are finding this series useful. So we are going to cover the prep timeline in this particular video. So I'm going to talk about different things, but the first and foremost thing is going to be the entire preparation timeline. And we're going to talk also about the calendar in terms of when the test registration begins, when the test is conducted, and when the announcement of the result happens. We'll also be talking about some of the frequently asked questions that students have when it comes to when they should be doing what. So all of those things will get covered in this video, so watch it till the end. Now, the first thing that we'll cover is going to be the registration, as I mentioned. So I'm going to talk not only about CAT, but I'm also going to talk about ADMATS because it is very, very important for you to understand that the CAT and ADMAT preparation goes together. It's not that you prepare for CAT and then you separately prepare for the ADMAT. So when you think of CAT, you also have to think of ADMATS, and that is why you will find it in today's discussion. We'll be talking about when the test is conducted, when the result is announced as well. Then we'll talk about the mock test. Now, most of the students believe that they need to take the CAT mocks once they've completed their entire syllabus. But as you will understand in this particular video, that is not going to be the case. So we'll talk about which are the months in which you should be taking mocks, and same for ADMAT. And then finally, the questions that students have regarding the timeline and any other questions that we typically keep getting. So let's begin. Now, what I have done is in this particular table that you see here, it almost looks like a data interpretation caselet. But what you can see is there are three things. There's a registration window. So this is where the registration will begin and when it will end. The actual test, when the test is conducted, and then result. So rather than getting into the very specifics, right, that in the year 2025, these are the actual dates when the tests were conducted. Of course, in the 26 season for CAT 26 and the ADMAT 27 season, we will have actual dates and you will find all of those data points on the B School Zone. We'll give you a link in the description from where you can check it out. But then for now, it's important for you to know the month in which that thing is going to start so that you can plan in a better way. So the blue indicates when the registration window is open, the green indicates when the actual test is conducted, and the yellow indicates when the result is announced. So as you can see for CAT, the registration window opens in August. So last year, I think August 1st is when they started, and it will continue till about first or second week of September. So you have sufficient time, but it's important that you fill the CAT form in this particular window as early as possible. So that you, and of course you don't make any mistakes and all of that. This is something that we're going to cover in one of the videos. So in fact, we'll have a video wherein we'll talk about the CAT application form and what are the things to keep in mind. So you have the registration window, then CAT is conducted on the last Sunday of November, and then the result will be announced in December. Now, typically they mention that they will announce the result in Jan first week or so, but if you look at the last couple of years, they have been releasing the result in the last week of December. So they announce it before the schedule. So if you look at the NMAT, for some of you, maybe NMAT is the first kind of national level test that you will end up taking, even before CAT, because the registration also starts simultaneously, but the test is conducted from November. So you might end up taking NMAT before CAT. So what you see here is NMAT registration starts in August and continues till October. November and December is when the test is administered. Now with NMAT, the result is announced immediately. So you complete the test, you submit the test, on the screen you will see your result. And that is why there's no separate month that I've indicated. I've indicated both green, yellow, showing you that essentially in November, December, the test is conducted and the result is announced in the same month. As I mentioned, immediately after the test. So there's no waiting period that is there for NMAT. For SNAP, August to November is when the registration will be there. Then December is when the test is conducted. There are 3 attempts that you can take. You can take multiple attempts. You can take up to 3 attempts if you want. And then in Jan, they will announce the result. Similarly for ZAT, now for ZAT, the thing is, if you look at the registration window in the last couple of years, what they've done is they in fact start registration even before CAT. So last year, for example, they started in July itself and the registration continued till December. So that's a very good thing. Even after CAT, you will have time to decide whether you want to appear for ZAT or not. But of course, the earlier you do, the better it is. And then in Jan, they will conduct the test and announce the results. Both things happen in the month of Jan itself. You have CMAT, which has a very short registration window. So October to November, roughly about 40 days of registration window. and then Jan it gets conducted. Feb is when the result will get announced. You have MyCat 1 and 2. MyCat 1 and MyCat 2 both have 3-month sort of registration period. So starts in September, continues till November. The test will happen in December. The result will also be out in December. This is for MyCat 1. Similarly, for MyCat 2, you have registration starting from November to Jan. And then Feb, they conduct the test and they announce the result as well. Then you have PGDBA, CUET PG. Some of these tests you don't have too many takers. PGDBA, for example, you don't have a lot of takers taking the test because it's a very specific program. However, important in your entire calendar, and that is why I mentioned it. Similarly, CUET PG has a sizable number of takers, and then the Maharashtra MBA CET. So Maharashtra MBA CET will typically be the last test of the season that a lot of students will end up taking, primarily for institutes that are available in Maharashtra. And then for this particular test, you will see Jan to Feb is the registration period. The test is conducted in April, and this time in 26, it's happening for, there are 2 attempts for the very first time. So there's an April attempt and there's May attempt. So the announcement of result will typically happen in May. So that is why I've indicated that way. It may happen in June as well. We don't know that, but typically in the month of May. So this is how your entire timeline looks, and why this timeline is important and why I didn't talk only about the CAT timeline is that most students, I would say 95% of the students or more, will end up taking multiple tests. They are not going to focus exclusively on the CAT because of the restrictions that it will produce. You will have very limited set of institutes that you can target that way. Though it is a sizable number, you don't want to rely on only one test when you are appearing for sort of a very important course such as MBA. You want to increase your chances, so you should look at multiple tests. Now this calendar is important because it helps you to put all your preparation into the different months that are there, that okay, this is the month in which I'm supposed to be doing this. So if, let's say, for example, somebody says, okay, I'm going to take only CAT, SNAP, CMAT and say CET, your calendar will look very different compared to somebody else's calendar. This is going to be same, but preparation wise what you should be doing will look a little different, because you, for example, you may not have to take, let's say, if you're not going to appear for MyCat, the MyCat mocks are not relevant for you, which means you can completely skip them. You don't have to spend any time preparing for that. But if you're planning to take it, you will have to account for it and make your schedule accordingly. Now, very closely associated with test season is going to be the mock test planning. So when you look at this, you have to also see, okay, by when should I be taking mocks, or in which month should I be taking these mocks. So if you look at CAT, for example, right now we know that it is going to be conducted on the last Sunday of November. So my mocks have to start much prior, unlike some of the ADMATs as we will discuss, because ADMATs have, of course, the duration and everything is different, but you have fewer number of mocks also that you will need to ace that particular test. And because you're prepared for CAT, most of your ADMAT preparation is also taken care of, so you don't have to put in so much effort. So when you look at CAT, the actual, so at IMS, for example, we have the SimCAT season, and we are going to start it very soon. So it starts in the month of May. Now, if you actually look at it, we started in April because we also have something called pre-SimCATs. We have 3 pre-SimCATs that we offer just to give students a flavor of what the SimCATs are going to be. This year, in fact, we are starting the SimCAT season in April itself. So in the last week of April, we have the first proctored SimCAT, as we call it. But I would say for most students, let's say you're not an IMS student, you should still start taking your test, your full length test, in the month of May. And from May you continue till November. So mentally you have to keep that in mind, that okay, May to November I'm going to be taking CAT mocks. How many, in which month, how many, etc., that is a separate plan. But I need to know that okay, this is the visibility, that May to November I am going to be taking full length test for CAT. For NMAT, you don't have to start so early. So anybody who is thinking of, say, joining some of the best institutes that you can get via NMAT, you don't have to start with NMAT mocks early. You can start them, say, somewhere in the month of August as well, and you will still be fine. You don't have to worry. If you want, you can start in July, but I would say August is going to be sufficient for most of the candidates, because the test months are November and December. So if you give yourself about 3 months of test taking, that's going to be good enough. What this also helps you to understand is that in some months you're going to have a lot of load. If you look at, say, October and November, for example, that's going to be heavy because you would end up taking, say, CAT, NMAT, SNAP mocks, right, in these months. If you reach in November, for example, you'll be taking mocks for CAT, NMAT, SNAP. You might start with 1 or 2 mocks of that as well. And then you will end up taking maybe 1 or 2 mocks of MyCat as well. So the planning bit becomes easy because of a structure like this, that it helps you to understand it better. So if you look at SNAP, recommend October, November, December for mock taking. You don't have to start it earlier than that. If you look at XAT, you can definitely start in November because the test is in Jan. So you give yourself November, December, Jan. That's good enough for XAT. For CMAT, because the test is conducted here, so you have December and Jan. These are the months in which you should be taking the mocks. We have the number of mocks that you look for CMAT. It's a 3-hour test, but it's not a very exhausting test like some of the other tests that are out there. And that is why it's possible to take, say, 10 mocks or 15 mocks in the 2-month period that you have. If you look at MyCat 1 and 2, you can, again, it's a very creative test, it's a very unique test. So you will see that it's possible to take the 5 mocks that we offer in the limited period. So that is why don't have to start early, November, December for MyCat 1, and then Jan, Feb for MyCat 2 should be good enough. For all the other tests, whether it is PGDB or CUET PG, you start roughly about 1 to 2 months prior to the test date. So if PGDB is happening here, Feb and March are going to be the months in which you take mocks for it. Similarly for CUET PG. For Maharashtra CET, because it's a 200 question paper and we also offer 20 full length tests for it, and there are past CET papers that are available. Factoring all of that, I would say it's better to start earlier. So if you're planning to take the Maharashtra MBA CET, your mocks can start as early as Jan. So Jan, Feb, March, April for the first attempt, and then May for the second attempt. So that is how you can structure it. So this is going to be your timeline for the mock test that you're going to take. What this tells you is that you will be starting with some sort of full length test taking from May itself. So you will not be waiting for your syllabus to get over and then you will begin the test, something that we'll talk more about in the FAQ section. Now, what is the ideal prep plan? So a lot of students have this thing that by when should I start my preparation? See, because this timeline is going to be more or less fixed, right? So you're not going to have too much deviations from what I just showed you when it comes to the test dates and the mock test plan. So students typically have this question that how much time should I spend or how much time do I need? And see, the answer, there's no unique answer to that question. Everybody will need different amount of time. But I would say if you're somebody who is a reasonably good candidate, right? Somebody who has had some sort of background in either aptitude tests in the past, and most students have that, as long as you're not, let's say, dislike one particular section or you have not done a particular section for a very long period of time, etc. If you're a reasonably good candidate, I think this is something that will be applicable to you. So I would say to complete the syllabus, somebody would need somewhere in the range of 3 to 5 months. Okay. Now this is not, I would say, something that will work for everybody. It's not a vanilla advice because ultimately what matters is how much time you're getting per day, or the usable time, I would say. See, somebody may have, say, 3 months, but that student is sitting at home and not doing anything else. Is it possible to prepare for the CAT? Absolutely. But if you are a working professional or you are a student who is currently studying in a college and you don't get so much time to prepare for the test, then you should give yourself more time. So give yourself, say, 4 months, 5 months, 6 months or more, so that you are able to cover the syllabus. So this is only to complete the syllabus, right? Now, to revise the syllabus and solve additional problems, give yourself about 2 months, and to take roughly 50 tests, which includes your SimCATs and actual CAT papers, about 3 months. Now, if you add this up, you're going to have somewhere around 8 months, right? That's like the minimum time frame that you will need. And from now, at the time when I'm recording this video, from now on till about CAT, you have 8 months. So it's definitely possible to prepare for it. Some students may have already started their prep. Some students may have completed their first round of syllabus as well. It just buys you more time, right? So you have more time now to focus on your full length test, on the practice questions or the benchmarking test and all the other master classes, etc. that we offer. So the more time you give yourself, the better it is. But at the same time, more time does not mean that you will be able to do better. Okay, so don't fall prey to that sort of misconception. Don't believe that just because you have more time, you will get more work done, right? That's not how it works. What you need to think of it, okay, how much usable time do I have, and am I optimizing my prep? Am I doing the best with the time that I'm getting on my hands, right? So roughly 8 to 10 months is good enough for most of the students. So if you're planning your CAT preparation now, I think it's a fantastic time to start. Target should be about 1,000 questions per day, 1,000 questions per month, right? So it's good enough target. If you look at it, in about 8 to 10 months, you'll end up solving anywhere between 8,000 to 10,000 questions. And that exposure is good enough for most of the students. But as I mentioned in the beginning as well, that there's no vanilla advice, right? Because everybody is different. Somebody who, let's say, has done engineering from one of the top institutes in India would not need, let's say, the same amount of time as somebody who might be, let's say, doing non-engineering from some lesser known institute, right? I'm not comparing the aptitude part of it. I'm saying that it's just that the exposure that one person has might be better than the other person, especially from a competitive test preparation angle. But aptitude is something that anybody can build, right? It's not specific to a certain kind of background, but it's just that you will have to plan accordingly. Okay, see, think of it this way, that let's say I'm somebody who has never exercised in my life, and I want to be very flexible. I want to do a lot of, say, yoga poses. I am going to participate in some competition. Now, how do I beat somebody who has been doing yoga, let's say, for the last 2 years, right? Is that I'll have to be very consistent. I'll have to spend more time doing yoga every single day to be in a better shape. So it's just that, right? So anybody can do CAT preparation pretty easily, provided you are very strategic about it and you know where you stand at this point of time and how much you're going to need, and accordingly you decide the time or the prep timeline for yourself. Okay, so keep those things in mind. And I would say about 8 to 10 months is going to be enough for most of the students. So back calculate that from November, and you can see that, okay, we are roughly in the same time zone at this point of time. So you should be able to start your prep now and comfortably be able to prepare for the test. Okay, but of course, people who start later also, you'll be able to prepare. People who have started earlier, they will also be able to prepare. So let's start with some FAQs. Okay, now first question could be, what if I don't have this much time? Okay, now some of you might be watching this video, let's say in May or June or July or August. You might think that I do not have sufficient time, but no, that is not the case, right? As I mentioned, you'll have to optimize your prep a little bit. So it is possible to prepare in limited time. It's just that, see, somebody who is starting early can say, okay, I'm going to do class exercise, pre-class, post-class, I'm going to do practice exercise, benchmarking test, I'm going to do master classes, I'm going to do topic-wise test. So it's just that they can do much more because they have more time, they started earlier, compared to somebody who starts a little late. But the person who starts late can always say, okay, fine, out of these 10 things that are available to me, I think even if I do 6 of them, I will still be able to crack the test. So you focus on those 6. Somebody who starts much later will say, okay, fine, I don't have to do even 6, I'm going to do only 3, but I'm going to do them very, very well, and I'll be able to still crack the test. So it's just that you end up optimizing your preparation depending on how much time you have. That's all about it. It's not necessarily a function of, okay, I started in March, so I'm better than somebody who is going to start in August. That is not how it works. Second, do I need to complete the syllabus and then take mock test? So majority of the students have this concern, and they end up making a very big mistake, that they wait for syllabus to get over. Firstly, there won't be a day when you will feel 100% confident about your prep. As long as you feel reasonably confident that, okay, I've put in the effort, I've done enough number of questions, that is where you are ready for the test. Okay, but otherwise there's no day when somebody can say, okay, I've done 100% of the questions that are available, I've done everything possible, and I'm 100% prepared for the test. It doesn't work that way. What you need to figure out is, okay, how much do I need to do before I feel reasonably confident? Okay, now when it comes to mock test, students think that they should do, so I'm going to use IMS as an example because we have 4 modules that we have for CAT. If you are enrolled at some other place, maybe a different number of modules, but think of it this way, that when you look at a full length test, right, you have VRC, DLR, and QA. Now, even if I've done, say, 25% of my syllabus, at least I would have done a couple of RCs, so I know how to solve RCs. I would have done a few DLR sets, so I know how to approach them, though I may not be able to solve everything. And maybe I've done, say, 4, 5, 6 topics in quant. Now, when I go for the test, my objective should be to do questions from the areas that I've covered. If it is something, if there are questions from areas that I've not covered, it's completely okay. So you don't judge your performance on the basis of the stuff that you don't know, because you're not going to be able to do well on that. So even if you've done one module, so one module out of 4, which is about 25% of your syllabus, I think you should be able to take a SIMCAT or a full length test, and it's not necessary that you'll do well on the test. But whatever you get, right? At least it gives you that exposure of how to handle situations when you don't know how to solve something. So you're training your mind to accept the limitation that, okay, maybe I'm not able to solve this particular question. Let me jump to another question. Because test taking itself is an art, and you have to give, in your entire timeline, you have to give it sufficient time to develop that particular skill. So that is why I said start your tests as early as possible, starting from May till November, so that you're giving yourself enough opportunity to master that skill. So prep and mock test go hand in hand. It's not that prep will get completed and then you start mock test. Of course, for people who are enrolled in long-term batches, they have completed their prep now, the first round of syllabus at least. So they're in a better position because they have done maybe 3 modules or 4 modules. But people who have done even 1 module should take the test and see how they are performing. Then, do I need to prepare for ADMATS separately? So as we saw in the entire timeline, ADMATS happen after CAT. Most of them except NMAT. So you don't have to do anything specifically for ADMATS till you reach the month of August. Only after August your focus should start, I would not say shifting, but you should add to your focus the other ADMATs that are there, right? So you don't have to do anything till about August, because when you prepare for the CAT, you're getting automatically prepared for other exams. About 70, 75, or even 80% of your syllabus or the coverage is going to be part of your CAT preparation. So when you do CAT prep, other exams automatically are getting taken care of. However, the formats are different, the marking scheme is different, the number of questions is different. There are some unique question types and topics that are specific to these exams, so you'll have to do it. And that's why mocks are necessary, and we give enough mocks for students to practice, but nothing to be done till about August. Okay, so don't worry about it at this point of time. Then when should I prepare for GD, VAT and PF? A lot of students, when I take sessions, have asked me this question, that what should I do for my communication, right? Or what should I do for my general knowledge? See, the simplest thing would be to just read, right? So I would say just following news, watching news or listening to news is good enough for whatever time when you're starting till about November. Because in the month of December and Jan, you will specifically prepare for group discussion, VAT and PI, and that much amount of time is sufficient for everybody. So nobody ideally should be doing any sort of PI specific prep prior to November, because it's meaningless. But the moment you reach December, you should start doing that. In fact, most of the students, what they do is they don't even follow news, etc., till the time they reach November. And in December, they will start reading, and that is good enough. I would still say it's possible to crack your interviews. But the earlier you do, the better it is, because your GK gets taken care of, which is a part of a lot of ADMATs. So in your entire calendar, you have to fit reading newspapers or following news as well. It's very, very crucial that you do it, so that later you don't have to struggle too much. We also have something called GK zone, by the way. For IMS students, there's a GK zone in which you find all the current affairs. So you can just go through that. That's good enough. Now, when are the interviews conducted? So all the interviews happen after the test result is announced. So you're going to have Jan, Feb, March. That is the time period in which the interviews are conducted. So you don't have to do anything specifically prior to that. So December and Jan is when you do the core interview preparation. So most results, I would say, get released starting from March. Some of the private B schools may conduct the interviews even before the test is conducted, say around October, November, December. But that number is pretty small, so you don't have to really worry about that as such. Most B schools, of course, will begin in June, right? And that is why they have to process the results sometime around March and April. So when they also have a calendar that they need to follow. So if you back calculate everything, you will see that Jan, Feb, March is going to be the interview season. And then finally, when do I need to apply to individual B schools? So typically the B school applications don't begin till the month of August. Okay, so mostly everything gets ongoing somewhere around August or September once the CAT notification is out. But what some of the private B schools do is that they will ask you to do some early round applications, etc., where you don't have the test score, but there is a profile based shortlisting that happens and you have your interviews. But as I said, the numbers are very limited, and if students have those calls, they get the support that they need, right? So there's nothing to be worried about at this point of time. But your applications so there are two types of broad applications that you will have. One is going to be the via CAT application, and that is going to be for the IMs. When you fill the CAT form, you apply to all the IMs. For non-IM applications, you have to apply individually to the B schools that you're targeting, and those that application season will start after August. Okay, so that is the timeline that you're going to have. As I mentioned, the B school zone is going to be very, very crucial when you look at this timeline. On the B school zone, we update all the deadlines when the applications are opening for individual B schools, for individual tests. We have form filling guidelines that we make for most of the tests and some of the B schools. So make sure that you go through it. We'll give you a link in the description, so bookmark that. And if you just follow that, you will have a very good experience in terms of your applications. Okay, so that is how the entire CAT prep timeline and the mock timeline and the test season goes. I hope you have understood how the whole thing works. In some of the future videos, we'll talk more about the CAT application form. We'll talk about normalization and stuff like that. So you have many more videos coming up. So stay tuned for that, and thank you so much for watching. Wish all of you all the best, and I'll see you soon.